Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to the National Parks Adventure Crossing America. So today we are at the Motorcities National Heritage Area, but standing inside of the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. So we're going to start talking to Brian first, because Brian, you brought us here and we're so excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Brian Yop. I'm the Director of Programs and Operations here at the Motorcities National Heritage Area, and I have the privilege of working with partners across our region to tell the story of automotive and labor history in Southeast and Central Michigan.
So this is the first National Heritage Area that we've been part of. So this is pretty exciting for the kids. So this is a big endeavor because you are in charge of 10,000 square miles. Yeah. Tell us about all the things.
Well, it's hard to believe, but yeah, the National Heritage Area is 10,000 square miles. If I use my little Michigan mitten map, we're both in the bottom corner of the state. But we cover the footprint of the concentration of automotive and labor stories of Michigan. And the National Heritage Area program is a part of the National Park Service. It was started in the 1980s under President Reagan, and it was created because there are stories of American history that aren't physical places, not all physical places. So the Heritage Area encompasses stories that are not just physical places. In our case, we are a cultural landscape. We tell the story of an innovation, of an industry, of automotive, and of course labor's history across the state. So we were created in 1998 to help tell that story, and we partnered with folks across the state to do that.
Well, how in the world did you get here? Because this is a really envious job. Kids are going to be excited about this. What is your journey into working for the Heritage Area in the national parks?
Well, they left the door open one day and I just showed up. No, actually, I was a teacher. And so I've always had it in my heart to educate and to share stories with people. And I've been doing that for a long time. And we were in a transition period with that and found my way into having a conversation with the leadership at the Heritage Area. And something happened, some conversation happened, and they created an opportunity for me to come and do this job because they felt like all of the skills that a teacher has, which is organizing and planning and communicating and thinking about small projects, but then big pictures, are things that would be helpful in communicating the story of the Heritage Area. So I sort of worked my way into our job in 2007, and I've been here ever since, working with partners across the region.
So they didn't shut the door on you after that? They let you in and let you stay?
Well, I put my foot in there so they couldn't close it, but after that we stayed working together, and it's been a great journey. Every day is an adventure. Every day is something new with the Heritage Area.
Well, you know, we're going to be talking today about this museum and the innovation in this museum, but what other sites just really get you excited about the Heritage Area?
So the Heritage Area has so many different partners across the region, and I enjoy working with them all, from as far west as the Kalamazoo area. For those who come into the Heritage Area from that side, it's sort of like you're coming from Chicago, you would run into the Gilmore Car Museum. Or if you come closer to Metro Detroit, you have the Museum of African American History, you have the Detroit Historical Museum, which tells the story of their community. You go north to Flint, Michigan, and you have the birthplace of General Motors and all the history entailed there. A great motor city like Ypsilanti, and that's why we named the organization what it was. These are all the cities, the motor cities, that made up this story. Go Lansing, which is our state capital, but also has a lot of General Motors and Oldsmobile story there. So all of them are my favorites. It's hard to pick just one.
In our Crossing America series with the National Park Foundation, we're having kids create scrapbook pages for each of the places we visit. I think we're going to need more than one page, because if we just draw out the map of Michigan, it's going to be hard to put all these places in without turning a page. But when we first spoke, you introduced us to one of your partners, and that's where we are today, the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. So let's talk to Matt just a little bit and see how he is telling the story for you guys.
Absolutely, you're in great hands.
So Matt, thank you so much for having us here and bringing one of your cars up. Just for a background, first of all, who are you? And tell us again where we're standing.
Yeah, my name is Matt Anderson. I'm the Curator of Transportation at the Henry Ford, and we are in the Made in America exhibit in Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation.
And we're standing in front of.
This is a 1917 Ford Model T. This is the car that put the world on wheels, as we like to say.
And I was told I could touch this one. This is actually a touchable and not an artifact, if you will. So nobody's going to come and get me, right, if I have my hand here.
Absolutely. You can touch, you can open the doors, touch the steering wheel, whatever you'd like.
Well, we'll do that a little bit later. But Curator of Transportation. Now, that's pretty fancy. How did you get this position?
Well, I went to school originally to be a teacher, but while I was there, I discovered this field of public history, which is basically teaching history or studying history outside the classroom. So what I loved about it is I got to still work with kids, but I could also work with adults, and then I could work with all these wonderful artifacts.
Tell us about this innovation, the Henry Ford innovation idea.
A lot of people think maybe Henry Ford invented the car or that he invented the assembly line. Neither of those is true, but he took both of those concepts to a place far beyond what anyone else had achieved before. In terms of the automobile, a lot of people at the turn of the 20th century were building cars and selling them for high cost, right? Cars were thought of as luxury items, just kind of recreational toys almost. But Henry Ford realized that if he could build a quality car and sell it at a reasonable price, the market was unlimited. Anyone making a decent wage would want to buy an automobile. And the Model T helped him achieve that goal. It was introduced in the fall of 1908. At the time, it was state-of-the-art. It was lightweight. It was durable. It was also fairly reasonably priced, originally about $850. But as the production methods improved, that cost kept falling until by the early 20s, you could buy a two-seat Model T for as little as $260. And the other half of the equation is how Ford built these cars with the moving assembly line. And he had been inspired watching how assembly lines or forms of assembly lines had been used in meatpacking plants, they'd been used in armament manufacturers, but Ford applied that to the automobile. Instead of having a team of 10 or 12 people build the whole car from the ground up, each person just did one small part, maybe tightening a screw or attaching a bolt somewhere. And you have enough people doing those small parts, you end up being able to build the car in series, and it's much faster by the time you get all of that moving assembly line running. And it also allowed him to cut the costs to manufacture the car, which then led him to cut the costs to sell the car.
I love the whole idea that he took something already out there and he expounded on it, made it better, which is such a great lesson for our kids, that they don't have to come up with the next best thing, but they can make the next best thing better by using the expertise of what they learn. So is this the only thing we're going to find here?
You're going to find a little bit of everything. We have hundreds of cars in the museum collection, but we also have railroad locomotives and passenger cars. We also have airplanes. We also have items reflecting social innovation. We have the bus in which Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, launching the modern civil rights movement. So a lot of different things covering all different types of American innovation.
So planes, Henry Ford was involved with planes also?
A lot of people don't realize that the automobile and the airplane kind of grew up together, right? Cars are introduced right around the turn of the 20th century, and the Wright brothers make their first flight in 1903. And Ford, being an innovator in the automotive industry, got interested in aviation and actually produced an airplane, the Ford Trimotor, for a number of years in the mid-1920s into the very early 1930s.
So, as a curator of transportation, I'm still trying to grasp that meaning. Do you have a say on what comes here?
Yeah, my job is to research the artifacts that we have and the stories that we tell, but also to look at new things we might want to add to our collection. So I generally make the first call, and then I have a group of other curators and programmers and folks here at the museum that meet, and we literally vote yes or no whether to bring something into the collection.
So would you want my bike from like 40 years ago that I used to ride because it's robin egg blue and it had a basket on it? Did he work with bicycles or anything?
Well, we do talk about bicycles with the Wright brothers, who built bikes before they got into the airplane business, but we always say the most important thing to us is not the artifact, but the story behind it, the person who used it, how it was used. That's what we're really collecting here, stories.
So obviously you would want it then because I have a great story. And as we talked with Brian earlier, Brian, you talked about how important it is for yourself to tell stories so that kids can remember the stories. What stories of transportation are exciting to you here?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's relatable. I think that's what's enjoyable about working with the heritage area, is that it is a story that is relatable. We serve a living industry. So cars have affected all of our lives in one way or the other, whether we're driving or riding or looking at them and enjoying them. You know, they have some effect on our lives. And we serve that living industry, so it's ever evolving, ever changing. So I love to sit down with people and just understand what their car story is. So, tell us how you got involved in the industry, whether it's the person that built the car, designed the car, worked on the vehicle, or sells the car today. I mean, all of these people have a part of that makes the industry what it is. And my story, is part of that as well. And I had to appreciate that more as I worked here. Both of my grandfathers moved to Michigan and worked in auto factories, one in Chrysler, one in Ford, and created the life that my parents and now I enjoy as a middle class. And that's the story of automotive as well, creating that middle class that we all sort of appreciate and enjoy as part of American society.
So you're continuing the story of your grandfathers.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say that there's no period at the end of the sentence that we're writing, that we are continuing the story. You put a comma in the place and you keep telling that story. And that's a great lesson for anyone watching here, is that you are part of a living history, that it's ever changing, ever evolving, and you're contributing to it even today.
I love that. Earlier I asked Brian what his favorite part of the National Heritage Area was. Can I ask what your favorite child is here?
Oh boy, I get asked that all the time, and my answer changes every day. But one of my favorite vehicles we have here is one of the smallest and one of the sort of least imposing. It's the 1896 Quadricycle. It's the very first car built by Henry Ford, just put together in the garage behind the house where he and his wife were living in Detroit. And that's kind of where all of this began.
Well, I think we've come to our innovation challenge for our students. So let's talk about our challenge today. Normally we call it a STEM challenge or an engineering challenge, but with permission from these guys, we're going to call this an innovation challenge, because this place is not just about Henry Ford, but about what he did in the world of innovation. And this place doesn't represent everything about the heritage area, but it's another part of the story. So we want you to research all the things that we're learning today. Use the resources that you find running along the bottom of the screen. Dig into the National Heritage Area. Dig into the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation. See what has already been created. And then we want you to look around your community. What other types of innovation could you take and make even better? Just using the lesson from Henry Ford that he didn't invent the very first car or the very first assembly line, but he took what was out there and he made it better. How can you make your community better with some type of innovative transportation? Now you can think about making sure this is accessible to all people. One of the things I love about the story here is that it was equitable. They were trying to make something that everyone could have, everyone could afford, not something that was just elite. So research your area. Where could transportation be used in your area? And then be inspired by the National Heritage Area, the story of the Michigan transportation, the story of this Henry Ford Museum, and create something new. Now you're going to remember to tag us at Dacia 92 and also tag the National Heritage Area and the Henry Ford Museum, because they're looking for the next big thing. And you never know, you could be featured either on the website, or maybe Matt would even come and see what your next big invention is. And Brian, I'm sure, would like to tell the story, so he might want to sit down and interview you. We're going to be using goal number 9 of the UN Global Goals, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So I can't wait to see how you innovate your own story. Guys, this place, come on now. I mean, really, I am actually leaning up against a Model T Ford, which is very excited. And no, kids, contrary to popular belief, I did not drive one of these. I'm not that old, but I'm really thrilled to be here. Matt, and then we'll come to Brian. Matt, there's probably some kids that, even though this is not a national park position for you, that might want your job. Do you have any advice for them on what they can start doing now in school to prepare for something like that? Just look in the camera.
The important things are to be curious, right? To want to learn more about people and stories. You want to be sympathetic so you can think about the challenges and the problems that people were facing and had to work through. And you also want to be able to learn from the failures as well as the successes of people who came before us. So those are important skills for this job.
Those are great advice. And now, Brian, yours is going to include stories somewhere because you're a story guy. But why don't you tell the kids what you're thinking?
Well, first and foremost, as Matt said, be curious about things. As an educator, I'm always wanting to encourage people to want to learn. Every day, I'm learning something new at my job because you don't know everything. And you go out there, you learn new things from different people. So I love sitting down with them and learning more about it. So that's the thing about that. Be curious. Listen to your teachers. As I said, I was a teacher, and the skills that I possessed as a teacher allowed me to get the job that I had, and I've had for a good while. So listen to your teachers because they're teaching you good stuff, and they're going to guide you in the path that you need to go to. But best be open to opportunities as well. I transitioned from a career of being a teacher to still sort of being an educator in what I do today. So be open to that. Sometimes your first path is not the path that will lead you to sort of your ultimate goal. So be open to new opportunities and new ideas.
Well, you heard it from some experts here in the room. They want you to be curious. We always say that when your passion intersects your purpose, you will find your dream job. I want to thank you guys for letting us be here today. I thank you for letting me touch this Model T Ford. I keep saying that 100 times, but I also just want to point out behind me how to build a Model T. I think we should even see if you want to try that too. A little innovation there. Maybe start with a model, if you will, and then go bigger. And think about how you can make it more economical even now and maybe not use gas. Who knows? They could be the next Henry Ford or huge transportation person right here. So a special thank you to the National Park Foundation for making this possible today. So on behalf of Dr. Drizzle, Curator Matt, Ranger Brian, we are out of here. Have a great day.